All right, you ball python fanatics, I know what you have going on. You have a pocket full of cash, just bought an enclosure for your ball pythons, and you're scanning the scene trying to figure out which morph to invest in. You're hoping something that pays out. And let me tell you, I want to tell you about something new that kind of hit the scene, I guess about 5 years ago, and it is by far the most cutting edge, state-of-the-art ball python morph there is. If you want to invest in something, I would highly recommend investing in the Scaleless head project. And I remember when it first came out, and I started getting into ball pythons about 5 years ago, and when it first came out, I was like, that's what I want to get into. But I couldn't afford the price tag. Believe it or not, it was $45,000 per snake. It would have cost me $90,000 to get into the project, which is a lot of money. And let me tell you, I did not have $45,000 for 2 snakes at the time. So all these years later, so last year I actually invested in the project, and I bought a male. And let me tell you, the price is coming down really fast because everybody's getting into the project, and we're kind of chasing the morph as it kind of goes along. And I paid $1,200 for my male, and this year I've seen them as low as $400, believe it or not. But it's still, I'm still, even though the price is coming down really fast, I would highly recommend getting into the project for sure. And I set up this tub here, and I kind of wanted to show you a little bit with my tripod, and kind of show you some of what I have. So I actually bred that male, and I had some pretty good luck. I had quite a few Scaleless head babies pop out, and I was kind of looking kind of at the latest thing that's going on with the Scaleless head and some of the snakes that have been selling. And just last month, totally Scaleless ball python was sold for $30,000. So it is a really hot project. So if you breed 2 Scaleless heads together, you'll get a certain percentage of the babies will come out totally Scaleless. And so what I did is I bought a male, I bred to some of my females, and so there's always the lag time, and that's kind of what holds the price, is the lag time. So now I have several females, and it's going to take me 3 years to breed the male back to the female to get some totally Scaleless snakes. And if I want a whole clutch of all Scaleless snakes, I'll have to hold back some of those female Scaleless snakes another 3 years to get into that. So I have some totally Scaleless, full clutches of totally Scaleless snakes. So, you know, it's like a 6-year lag time on people are kind of paying. So the people that spent $90,000 for a pair of snakes a few years ago, now they're selling the Scaleless for like $30,000 because they're way ahead of the game. They're way ahead of everybody else. And we're just trying to catch up here with the the Scaleless head morphs. So another thing I should tell you about is there's always a danger with new morphs, with new ball python morphs. So take a look at this over here. I actually have this girl right here. I just kind of peeked in here. So this is a bumblebee, which is a spider. Let me pull her out. It's a spider and a pastel, and I think she might have little eggs in her. This is one of my last snakes. She's really in shed, but she's a really pretty looking snake. And these used to sell for big money, and now bumblebees are really cheap. But that is pastel and spider. And if you mix in Desert Ghost, let me show you what happens when you mix in Desert Ghost. So we'll put this girl back, and I have let me show you this pastel. This one's a little bit stuck in shed, but you can see what the Desert Ghost does, and she just ate a couple of rats. She's not happy. But take a look at this beauty. That is what Desert Ghost does to that same snake. And there used to be there was a gene that came out called Desert, and this Desert Ghost happens to be a recessive mutation, and the desert actually was a codominant. So, and there's also a ghost. So you could actually have a desert gene and a ghost gene that's separate than the desert ghost. And I can remember when the desert first came out, and it was so amazing. It's like you'd breed something like this to your snake, and half the babies would come out looking like this instead of a recessive, because you breed something to this, and all the babies come out with one copy of the gene. So then it takes another 3 years to get the females to actually breed them back. But I remember when the desert came out, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah!" And you look back at some of the old videos of the big breeders. I mean, these really big guys that are, they have warehouses full, and I look at their videos now, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to hold back 2,800 snakes this year." It's just, the numbers are so crazy. And I remember looking back at the videos when the desert first came out, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this desert's great. I want to breed it through all my snakes." And can you imagine the desert and all your snakes? So let me tell you about the desert. The desert, turns out that there was a problem with the females. You could take a male desert, breed it to all your snakes, and you'd be just fine. But if you grow up a female desert and you try to breed it, either the eggs are infertile or it gets egg bound and dies. Now you look around for desert genes, and people selling desert, and there are very few desert. People stay away from them. I'd say there's probably only, if you look on the internet, I'd say there's only a handful of snakes with the desert gene, and normally they say pet quality only. So can you imagine spending $90,000 for a snake that has the desert, and then come to find out it's there's a problem with the genetics? And I think it's kind of the same way with the scaleless head. It was kind of at first, I think, but now, I mean, you look on the internet, there's like hundreds of scaleless head snakes, and there's, at least a dozen scaleless that are out there. I have yet to see anyone breed a totally scaleless to a totally scaleless. So, I mean, it's still new, cutting edge, and that's, you're kind of taking a risk, but there's a lot of people into the project, so hopefully it will be okay. So let me show you the male that I bought last year. Okay, so this is my male, and he's going into shed, so he's really, really faded out. But normally he's really intense. But if you can see on his head, he is missing a bunch of scales on his head. And actually these were originally imported by Brian Barczyk from West Africa, from I think they export most of them from Togo and Benin and Ghana over there. All those countries, I think all those countries are pretty much all in a row over there. And that's basically where all the imports come from. And he was the first person to actually bring it into the country. And it was actually kind of an accident. They're like, "Hey, we got this ball python with some scales missing. And do you want it?" And he was kind of on the fence. "Well, I guess just throw it in." And then come to find out, he bred it to another snake, and half the babies came out with scaleless heads. And then he bred two scaleless heads together, and came out with the first totally scaleless snake, which was the most expensive snake in the history of ball pythons. Which he was offered $150,000 for that snake, if you can believe it. So other than the scaleless head, this guy looks pretty much completely normal. You couldn't even tell that's any different than just a normal. So if you watch a lot of the videos from some of the really big ball python breeders, it seems to me like a lot of them are staying away from the scaleless, and I think it's because they know that there's this serious plunge in prices, and it's really competitive, and everybody's in the game trying to get the scaleless ball pythons out there. And I find it kind of interesting that they're just like not even dabbling in it. You would think they'd be like, "Yeah, I picked up this scaleless head and I'm going to kind of mix it in my collection." So if you think about all the more, so everybody's doing pieds and trying to mix more gene in with the pieds and the clowns and trying to mix more of the clowns. And I think the pieds and the clowns are really hot and the prices really stay really high because it's a recessive gene. In order to get something back into the recessive gene, it takes additional time to grow up the females. And it's kind of a waiting game, so nobody can really beat you to the punch. And there's like 200 morphs out there, so you can kind of work on what other people aren't working on and kind of get there first. Where if it's a co-dominant, it's easier to kind of compete and jump right in. So, but the other thing is you think about Scaleless, so you can do everything in Scaleless. So everyone's kind of, competing against each other, clown this, clown that, they want to add in multiple genes into the clown. Well, if you take the Scaleless and you bring it into the clowns, now you have everything that they just did. You can repeat it with a totally Scaleless snake. It kind of resets the whole ball python market as far as what you can do with all the morphs. And I think it's really exciting, and for me, I am really head over heels with getting into the Scaleless project, and I'm really hitting it hard. As a matter of fact, I'm keeping all of my Scaleless hatchlings this year. You won't see any at the show. And the prices come down so much that, for $400, why would I sell something that I could use as a future breeder? And most of my stuff are they're females, which is really fortunate for me. So let me show you kind of the female Scaleless head ball python hatchlings that I have this year. All right, I am going to start with this beauty, and this is a Scaleless head female normal, and it actually came out of my Jungle Woma spider female. And I'm not quite sure if it has Jungle Woma in it. It's kind of a new gene for me. So the Jungle Woma is kind of a lightener and an enhancer. And I think it's really hard to tell because it seems like when you have a Scaleless head snake, it really lightens and enhances the color by itself for some reason. It almost seems like you can almost tell it's a little bit brighter than a regular normal. And it seems like all my Scaleless head it seems like they're just a little bit brighter. And you can see this one's a fairly high expression. And I originally paid extra for my male, so so a lot of I could have actually picked up a male for probably I think about $800 when I got mine, as a very low expression as far as the number of scales missing on the head. And I'm kind of gambling that if you mix two Scaleless heads together and they have their high expressions where they're missing a lot of scales from the head, you'll get a totally Scaleless with even no risk of having scales. So that's, I kind of invested more up front into the project to kind of have it pay out more at the end. So this is definitely one of my holdbacks, and hopefully eventually one of my future breeders. Alright, take a look at this beast of a snake. This is a pastel pinstripe Scaleless head female. It's pretty rare to actually see one like this. And when I first hatched this out, these were selling on Morph Market for about $6,000 a piece, which is pretty incredible. And so if this was actually an adult and you crossed my Scaleless head with her, and you got a completely Scaleless pastel pinstripe or a Scaleless lemon blast, you could probably get at least $30,000, I'd say, right now. But see, I'm behind the game. It's not an adult snake, and it's going to be a while. And by the time I get this on the market with a totally Scaleless lemon blast, other people will have it as well, and it's basically supply and demand, and the price will come down. So I'm pretty excited about this girl, holding her back as a future breeder. You can see she's a really high expression lemon blast. And now I'd say I've actually seen one on Morph Market selling for $1,800. So the price has come down quite a bit, just since she's hatched out and kind of grown a little bit. But I'm not really focused on the price. I really want to get scaleless in my collection, totally scaleless. And I'm really not that much focused on price. I'm really focused on kind of more of a getting into the cutting edge stuff. And you can kind of beat everyone to other projects. Like, I could work it into bamboo and get a scaleless bamboo, which I doubt anybody's working on. So you can have a lot of like world firsts and stuff like that coming out with, working with one of the new cutting edge morphs like a scaleless head ball python. So believe it or not, I actually have two Lemon Blast scaleless head females. And this is the other one. And I plan to keep them both. And I found with a lot of my snakes, it seems like, I had two pieds this year, and neither one of them laid eggs. I had two lessers. One of them laid eggs, and one didn't. So I think if you really want to hit the odds and get eggs right up front, then I think two females of the same thing can really speed things up a lot. So this one's got almost a higher expression of a scaleless head, I think. But it's I really like the Lemon Blast. They're really good looking snakes. And this one's been eating a lot. This is one of my very first hatchlings from one of my first clutches. So it's probably one of the biggest hatchlings I have in my collection right now. So I wanted to show you these two snakes. So one of them is an $80 snake, and the other one is probably worth $1,200. And it's hard seeing them side by side, right? So these are both pastels. One of them is a scaleless head, and you can almost tell that the brighter one is a scaleless head. So this one right here obviously does not have a scaleless head. And this one right here, if you can see her head, it's actually a female too. She is a scaleless head. And it's pretty amazing. Just one small little change could have a huge difference in the price. These are really, really bright snakes. I really love these little pastels. They're just really electrifying yellow. And the scaleless head even brightens it up even more. It's also interesting that the scaleless head kind of changes the pattern to where it's kind of a more regular pattern versus this one. Normally pastels are really broken up, and the scaleless head kind of changes the pattern back to more of a regular repeating pattern, which is, I find, really interesting. Okay, so I actually have 4 more scaleless head ball python hatchlings, if you can believe it. And this is basically, looks like a normal, but is 50% het caramel albino, and it's a male. And you can see it's a really fairly high expression scaleless head. And I bred, I bred my scaleless head to my 100% het caramel albino female. And kind of what I'm planning on doing is, I'm hoping I hit the odds with this guy, and I'm hoping it's 50% that he either is or isn't caramel albino, het for caramel albino. And I don't know if you've seen the het caramel albino, but they're really, it almost looks like a different kind of an albino, which is really neat. And if I bred this, it probably won't be ready to breed, definitely not this season, but maybe next season it'll be ready to breed. And you can actually breed a male at 400 grams. I started breeding mine at 400 grams. And by the time I was halfway through the breeding season, it was about up to, I think, 800 grams, because he was breeding and pounding the rodents. So it actually worked really well. But if I could breed this back to the 100% het caramel albino, I'm hoping I'll actually hit caramel albino scaleless head, which would be pretty neat. So here's a het caramel albino, or 50% het caramel albino female scaleless head, and you can see This one actually hasn't been out of the egg that long. Actually hasn't even had a meal yet. And it's a really low expression scaleless head. You can just see one little scale missing from the head. And the other thing about the scaleless head is, if you're in doubt, the last vent scale right before the vent is split in two instead of a solid scale. So it's this very last scale right before the vent that's actually split in two. And you'll see on other ball pythons that it's actually one single scale and it's not split. So that's another way you can tell the scaleless head if you're in doubt. So here's another scaleless head female, 50% het caramel albino. So kind of the plan is with these is I have 3 of them that are basically the same. Different amounts of scales missing from the head. This one's pretty obvious. So I want to grow these up and breed them back with that male. And I'm hoping for the odds on that male. You know, you can always make another male and breed it within a year. But females, you really have to wait 3 years. So actually, if I bred that male to this female, and assuming they're both het caramel albino, I could actually hit on one of the first clutches, if I was really lucky, I could actually hit a totally scaleless caramel albino, which would be pretty amazing. I'm sure it would be the world's first, and I'm sure, you know, not a lot of people really work with the caramel albino, and especially with the scaleless. I think it'd probably be a long time before you saw another totally scaleless caramel albino. So that's kind of a neat project I'm working on. So here's another female scaleless head, 50% het caramel albino. And this one came from the same clutch, actually. But she started eating a lot earlier, and she has had 4 meals in her already, where the other ones, I think the last one didn't have any meals. And then the male I think only had 1 meal. So they're kind of all behind this girl. So this one's really, you know, once they start eating, they grow really fast, and sometimes it takes a long time to get that first meal into them. And this one's definitely a more of a higher expression scaleless head, I think, than all of my other female 50% het caramel albino scaleless heads. Alright, so this year at the shows, you definitely won't see any of my scaleless head ball pythons, but the next year, so I'm actually, so in a couple months, I'm planning to kind of go through and pair everyone up. So right now we're kind of at the tail end. I have most of my hatchlings in the rack. I have a few eggs in the incubator. I think I have 11 eggs left out of, I think I had 94. I'll probably end up with 94 hatchlings this year. So it's been a pretty good year. I thought I was going to have over 100, but I was pretty close. I had some snakes that didn't lay that I thought were going to lay. So I'm kind of trying to figure out what to pair up with the scaleless head. And I'm thinking maybe putting it in the lesser. Not sure exactly what else I'm going to do. I kind of like to work it into like clowns and pieds, but I'm kind of limited because I don't really have that many clown and pied females right now. I'll probably kind of keep a straight clown and pied this year and hold back some of the females to kind of boost my clown and pieds for the following years, and then maybe the following year kind of mix the scaleless head back into it. So it's like, you know, there's so many different combinations. You're always like kind of scratching your head. Then you get halfway through the season, you're like, oh, I should have paired this. Oh, I should have paired that. And then you get to the end and you're like, you want to hold everything back and you don't really have enough room. You're kind of figuring out, you know, what you can hold back and what you need to move, or if you want to expand and get bigger, or it's, you know, I don't know, it's exciting for me, but it's kind of a dilemma raising ball pythons, is which direction you want to go, and do you want to grow, or do you want to kind of maintain and upgrade? So that's kind of it for the scaleless head. I think it's one of the really hottest morphs on the market. I would highly recommend getting into the scaleless head project. If not from me, from somebody else. At least get a male and kind of try to work it into some of your females, or think about going in that direction. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.